Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Redesign Your Life today. I'm Daniel Kobryner, your host, and I'm a mental fitness coach. This podcast it's about transformation. It's about speaking with guests who share their stories and how transformation is possible at any time in life with anyone, and some things you think are not possible turn out to be possible. And today I'm very honored to have a very special guest with us. This is Shelly uh, Kenow. And Shelly is really specialist in education. She has a huge amount of experience. She partners with parents, caregivers, school districts to find common ground to enhance the education of children with special needs. She does it by providing an understanding of special education and the IEP document and process. Shelley is a certified special education teacher and she has been a special educator for over 25 years. She completed a master IEP coach and mentorship and is a member of the Master IEP Coach Network. And she's worked in the United States and England. Shelley, first of all, welcome to this show. And I would like you to introduce you even a little further. Who is Shelley and what is drove you to do what you are doing now?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Daniel. Your podcast is very much similar to mine. And to go all the way back to the 1900s, when I was just a little girl, in third grade, I knew that I wanted to be a teacher. I had a most amazing teacher in third grade, and she just made me love education even more. And throughout that time until I graduated high school, I had this little thought in my head of, oh, you should teach special education. You should teach the special education students. And I always kind of poo-pooed that and just sort of ignored that voice because I had all these excuses. Oh, I'm not going to have enough in common with them because I didn't have a disability. I didn't have anybody in my family that had a disability. So I thought I'm not going to know how to connect with them. And I
Mhm.
knew enough about education even then to know that to really reach your students, you need to connect with them. And as the years went on, I continued to want to teach, but there was one or two times where I sort of thought, oh, maybe I'll be a lawyer, or maybe I'll be, something else. But it always came back to teaching, and it was always teaching primary grades in general education.
Mhm.
And then I met and married my husband. And I have to back up a minute. When I was a senior in high school, I was very much finished with school. I had no love for school. I had no love for education at that point. I had completely done a 180 as far as my thoughts and beliefs about education. And so immediately after high school in my local area, I was able to start working as a teacher's aide because there was still in the back of my head that I wanted to be a teacher and I had to get a degree to do that, but I was not wanting to go right into college right after high school. So I began becoming a paraprofessional or a teacher's aide or a teacher's assistant. That one job has many, many titles depending on where you are in the world.
Mhm.
And so I was trying to cover all of the names so everyone understands what I'm speaking about. When I got into these classrooms as a paraprofessional, I loved the students that I was given to work with. But my brain didn't understand for some reason that those were the children that were in special education that I was helping. It wasn't until I met and married my husband and we moved overseas to England and I got a job at the Department of Defense dependent schools for 5 students in kindergarten. I was a paraprofessional still, and I was their paraprofessional, and they had special education. And in the United States, special education is driven by that IEP document, and that stands for Individualized Education Program.
Mm-hmm.
Then it comes from the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. I absolutely got all of my passion, all of my love, and even more desire again to work with kids, but not just kids at that point. At that point, it was, I want to work with kids who are eligible for special education.
Mm-hmm.
And here in the United States, there are 13 categories where children can be found eligible for special education. The eligibility that I find the most exciting, the most intriguing, and the most fulfilling when I'm able to help a student get that appropriate education is the eligibility that covers behaviors. And it's called the emotional disability eligibility here. And that can be a lot of different types of behaviors. And I found out that I loved doing the investigative part of things
Mm-hmm.
and finding out like, okay, I believe that that behavior is communication. And so what is that communication behind the behavior? What are they missing? What are they trying to tell us that they don't have the words to tell or they themselves don't understand? And so I just love that investigative piece. So I was teaching for over about 25 years, I guess, in the education system here in the United States. And I had worked a little bit, done some volunteering at an English primary school when we lived over there.
Mm-hmm.
And after about 25 years, I thought, okay, this is it. Actually, it wasn't me. It was the Lord said, okay, you're done teaching. Now you're going to move into advocacy and you're going to write a book and you're going to
Mm-hmm.
become a public speaker.
Mm-hmm.
I never had any of those things on my vision board. And so that is what I do now. I'm an author. I have a book called Those Who Can't Teach: True Stories of Special Needs Families to Promote Acceptance, Inclusion, and Empathy. I think I said the title backwards, actually, to promote acceptance, empathy, and inclusion. And so then after that book came out, then I started my own podcast, which again is similar to yours in the design. I started reaching out and speaking at education conferences, and I became an IEP coach, which that just means that I can walk alongside families as they are taking their child through the special education system in here, the United States, and just making sure that they're truly getting that appropriate education that they are entitled to based on just the fact that they're a human being, but also our special education law. So I'm going to stop now, take a breath. If you have any questions.
Well, a lot of questions, and thank you very much. I mean, it's first, the I can feel the sense of purpose. See the purpose, which is something you wanted to do as a young child, as a third grade. Okay, it stopped a little bit, but it came back, and it came back strong. And this is what you've dedicated your life. So actually, this, and this first perhaps question is about purpose, Shirley. How
Okay.
important is it? I mean, for you, but as well for the students or your pupils you teach to have this purpose in life.
Yeah, it's incredibly important. I feel that if we don't have a reason why we exist, we burn out quickly, we lose interest in a lot of things, we just kind of are sad often. And I know a lot of people that don't find their purpose until much later in life. And I was very blessed to know at age 9, third grade, what my purpose was supposed to be. But again, my purpose changed. And I think we have to remember that too, that even if you think, your purpose can vary throughout your entire life. There are many other facets of my life that I haven't shared that are part of my purpose.
Hmm.
But giving my students the realization that they are valuable that they are worth being alive, that they are worth being educated, that they are perfect exactly the way they are, and that I'm not trying to cure them or fix them, but I am trying to come alongside them and show them how to use their strengths to shore up some of their deficit areas, and that their purpose is when I'm with them usually is to learn, but then to take that knowledge and do something with it later on in life.
This is beautiful, beautiful. And actually, it makes me think of, this Japanese expression, which is called ikigai, which is the purpose of life in Japanese. And it's
Oh,
exactly what you discuss. I mean, the way it teaches us in a few words and it's very interesting to look at that. It's made of four components. One is, what do you love doing? What's your passion, or what did you love as a child? It's really so.
mhm,
The second area is, what are you good at? What are your unique skills, your God-given talents? And again, it's not about praising oneself, but it's about, even when we ask others, they would ask, what is Shelly really good at?
mhm,
And then how can we help the world? It could be someone, it could be some categories of people. How can we add value, really immense value? And the last point is, how can we live from that? How can we make a living? How can we be paid? But it can be money, but it can be as well. It can be as well recognition and feeling good. Like, so when you cross these four areas, it's like, what's your passion? What you love doing? What are you good at doing? What the world needs and what you can be paid for? The intersection, the crossing is called ikigai. And
mhm,
exactly as you said, the ikigai can change in your life because you evolve. Sometimes you've got new things coming, but really the sense of purpose is so important.
mhm. Absolutely.
And you see, you mentioned as well something, Shirley, that of course everybody, okay, we are born different. People have different
Mhm,
abilities. But what can appear as perhaps a handicap or a strength or a weakness is actually a strength. And they are,
mhm,
so I'd like you to share about this, because obviously there's, people expect us to be within like you say, a certain frame, and this is,
mhm,
but when you really get to understand, I mean, children or, adults, you can see that they've got abilities that other people don't have. And I'd like you to share about this. You talked about this like 13 categories
mhm.
of children. So if you want to expand a little bit on that, I know there are different questions in one here.
Yeah. Yeah, so the gift I think that people that are eligible for special education have is, as you said, they have unique abilities that they're often hidden or they're very protected and they don't want to let them out. And so I'm
Mhm.
going to try to combine my answer to cover both of your questions.
Sure.
And again, it also goes to that purpose that we talked about. So in the book that I wrote, at the end of each chapter, and the chapters were based on interviews that I did with families who have a loved one, or in two of the chapters, the individual who was eligible for special education talked to me and shared about their life. And they got final editing rights before it went to print. The only thing they didn't see was the final paragraph or two. And that was where I put in what I had learned from knowing this individual or knowing their family and through the interview process. Because all of these families I knew for a minimum of a year, and some of them up to 10 or 15 years before having the book interviews. And I thought I understood a lot of their stories, especially the ones that I had known for so long. But when I interviewed them, they really opened up even my own eyes to what it was really like walking day to day
Hmm.
in their shoes.
Hmm.
And so I learned about empathy. I
Hmm.
learned about unconditional love. I learned about continuing on even when it felt like no one was there believing in you. I learned about it's okay to fail at something. and to push through that failure. Because if you can push through that failure, it's not a failure anymore. It becomes a learning experience. I learned that sometimes you can speak volumes without saying a single word. And those 13 categories that you asked me about are the categories that find children eligible for special education.
Mhm,
And they have to be found eligible under one of these categories, but that doesn't define who they are.
mhm,
That's just that one piece that gets them that little bit of extra or lot extra support that they need to truly become the person that they are designed to become. I had in my classroom a big poster, and I now use it as the introduction to my own podcast, which is a caterpillar turning into a butterfly. And the saying that goes with it is those we know who we are, but not who we will be. And that's that transformation of I can't think of a better or more beautiful one than the caterpillar transforming into the butterfly. And I saw that happen so often with my students. I would hear comments from other teachers or society or even some of their extended family members of, oh, they can't do this, or they won't ever do that, or they can't be this. And it bothered me. And that's partially why those that can't teach is the name of the book, because I wanted to flip that on its side. I don't know if the saying is universal or not, but in the United States, there's a saying, those who can do, those who can't teach. And it's a negative connotation toward teachers. And the reason that it's said that way is in order to try to make teachers feel like they're less than. And that's how everyone in my book felt or feels. But I wanted to flip that on its side and say, if we're open to learning from those who are different than us, and in my book, it's about people with disabilities, but honestly, that concept applies to anything, anybody who is different from us. I mean, you're French, I'm American. We can learn from each other if we just allow the opportunity to happen. But if I shut the door because you're French and I'm an American and we don't have the same background, we're not going to make our world a better place. And that's what I'm always trying to do when I'm working with these families now, when I'm working with teachers, when I'm working with corporations, is to truly try to help every person reach their best version of themselves as possible.
wow, you see, this is so powerful, and I have to say, I resonate a lot, on for different reasons, actually, Shirley. I mean, first, well, I mean, if there's no first, but you see, the fact of having faith, you say faith that everything's possible. It's so important, whatever religion you are, whatever, but it's really, having faith that we are all on this planet, the image of God, and we have immense abilities. It's just that sometimes, this light is being shadowed. Sometimes it's by our prime education, from the time we were born. There's
Yep.
and when we have the ability, when we have somebody who can assist us in opening up, in removing, and very often it's removing some doubts, some fears, some this we can blossom. So this
Mhm.
and another point you talk about failure, and actually I use the same for me as a coach, as a life coach. Failure doesn't exist. Actually, failure is exactly as you said. The teaching, I use this word, is like most important is to take action. And when you take actions with intentions, okay, sometimes it doesn't bring you exactly where you want it to go, but it's not a problem. You learn from that, and then this enables you to change path and then to do the things you really want to do. And I'm going to share something. I mean, one of my daughters had special needs, so I'm
Oh,
very
okay.
and when she was in the general system, like classes of 13, 30, we didn't know first. I mean, we saw she had learning disabilities, but it was not the right environment, and we changed her school in a much smaller structure with limited number of students and teachers who are specialized in this, like yourself, and all of a sudden we saw this little girl kind of blossom up and do the things she really wanted to do. And of course, it was an investment, but it's the best investment we've done, for her, so that
Yeah,
she could express herself. So, and so all this really resonates with me. So thanks for sharing.
absolutely. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share. I love to talk about it. I'm getting a little misty because I love to remember all of the things that my previous students have accomplished
Hmm.
since I wrote the book, since they started as a student with me. And it just gives me such an amazing feeling. And I want to try to help everybody see that butterfly in every student that they work with or in every individual that they meet. That, I truly believe that we're all caterpillars. Now, I understand that caterpillars don't turn multiple times into butterflies, but as humans, we can and we do. And when we're given positive feedback for real things, not just fluff saying, "Oh, that was great," but
Hmm.
actually acknowledging the good characteristics in somebody, the good abilities that they have. What oftentimes people do look down on as a problem is, like, for example, attention deficit disorder or attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. That's a person who is an amazing multitasker. And there are, so many jobs that they excel in. But when they're going through school and being told that you have to sit a certain way or in a certain chair, or you have to listen a certain way or look like you're paying attention in a certain way, we kind of squelch those amazing gifts. And then by doing that, we're hurting that person's self-esteem. And sometimes it never comes back. And sometimes it does come back. And then, you get people like, and I always say his last name wrong, but the gentleman who owns Virgin Airlines,
Richard
Richard
Branson.
Branson. Yeah, he
Mhm.
has dyslexia and I believe ADHD. And I mean, he's got this beautiful airline company and all the other things that he has. And, different, so many celebrities and so many famous people are people who learned differently going through school. And that's exactly how I've always looked at it. It's not been that my students couldn't learn, but it was always that they learned differently. And I needed to find the way as their teacher that they could learn and express it in a way that I understood it and they understood it.
Wow. Again, I mean, it's so powerful. You mentioned Richard Branson. Can even mention somebody like Einstein.
Mhm.
he was, in school, he was not good. He was not performing. People
Right?
thought he was useless. But because
Yep.
his brain was wired differently, he had,
Yep.
and actually, for some people, and for instance, some people who have really this, again, who are very gifted, but school, if they find themselves like in a normal into bracket schools,
Hmm.
they feel lost because they cannot express themselves. They are bored. So again, it's really recognizing these gifts as soon as possible, or these abilities, and really how, and I really love the blossoming, because it's really this, how the transformation uh, can happen, and how they can become really butterflies.
Hmm.
So this is,
Yeah.
and you see, so, and now, for instance, in obviously you lived in the UK, and
Mhm.
what would you say about, systems of educations, like, for instance, Montessori schools, and is it, and or there's even, Rudolf Steiner. There are different, you know, I mean,
Yeah.
kind of different ways of teaching. Is it something which you say would go perhaps towards this, special education?
I think so. I don't think that there's really one type of teaching that works for everybody. And so I think it's important to have options so that we can reach as many students as possible. And so what I remember about the English primary school I was in is kind of similar to what Montessori schools do, which is they combine ages rather than, oh, you're 8 and you're in first
Hmm.
grade and you're 9 and you're in second grade. The Montessori schools are like, and again, what I remembered about the English primary school was, oh, okay, well, we have these 10 kids. It doesn't matter that they're 1 or 2 years in chronological age difference, but they're developing in this particular skill at about the same spot. So we're going to teach them all together. And it's not a special class. It's just, and that was always ebbing and flowing. They might be in this grouping for the English classes, but then they come into a different grouping for the math classes because they're either higher or lower than maybe they were for the English. And that's what I really loved about the Montessori schools as well as the primary schools that I worked in England. And it's kind of what special education is because I had kids that were in kindergarten working with kids that were in second grade when they would come into my room because they were at approximately the same level in that skill.
Hmm.
And I just think there's a large population of people that a traditional school works for. And that's wonderful.
Hmm.
However, for the remaining 20 to 25%, I think they should have those options to
Hmm.
even
Hmm.
homeschooling. I think homeschooling, when done well, is a beautiful option. I know many families who have homeschooled their children, and their children grow up to be incredibly successful people. I think where the real problem becomes is when how we define success. And everybody has a different definition of that. So if you think success is having $1 million and, a mansion and really expensive cars and okay, no, not everybody is going to achieve that. But success to me is each person reaching their fullest potential. Because if each person can reach their fullest potential, then our society is going to be a lot better.
This is beautiful. And actually, you see that I was just going to ask you about homeschooling, and you kind of proceeded, had it, and no, it's wonderful. And you see success as well. I have to say, personally, I very much resonate with this as a coach. It's really, I'm taking, my clients where they are and bringing where they want to go, you see. And it's
Mhm.
about, again, success. It's about, I mean, everybody has different goals. How do you help people? I mean, for me in particular, with what I'm doing, and it's why I love doing what I do, is mental fitness. It's about understanding these programs running on autopilot in your mind, these saboteurs, judging ourselves, being a perfectionist, being a controller, being a victim, being a people pleaser, really understanding that it's not us. These are programs we learn from a very young age. And then
Mhm.
once you understand them, how do you reprogram your subconscious mind to get habits which are going to serve you, and where you will lead your life with clarity and confidence. So it's very similar. I mean, you do it with young
Yes.
children, perhaps more with adults, but really it's about change. So when we talk about change, and I'd like you to tell us a little more about your book, Shelley, because obviously your book is a summary, I mean, of your experience. Just tell us a little more about your book and what's.
Sure. Yeah. Yep. It is 10 chapters long. And as I mentioned before, 9 of those are based on interviews that I did with different families who either they themselves in 2 of the chapters have the disability and were speaking to me, or
Hmm.
in the chat, all the chapters, it was usually the mom who spoke to me and shared with me the journey that they had been on to that point. And they talk about the medical field and how, several of the children were born with with a diagnosis of something, be it Down syndrome or a chromosomal abnormality or cerebral palsy or spina bifida. And so I mean, instantly there's a really sad story in Kathleen's chapter where her mom talks about when Kathleen was born. You think about a delivery room and it's very happy and it's very exciting and there's lots of noise and there's lots of stuff happening. When Kathleen came out, the room went silent. And the mom said, Cindy said that um, she, the look on the nurse's face, she ended up having to have a C-section, and the look on the nurse's face that was up by her was a combination of horror and sadness and just yucky.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And Kathleen was born with a cleft lip and a cleft palate, so she had a big hole right here instead of lips and a formed mouth like we would normally expect. And from that point on, Kathleen's mom has fought for almost everything in her life for her to have it because there was always this defense mechanism from the parent of this is my daughter deserves to be alive.
Mm-hmm.
And even the medical field, the doctor that delivered her baby, the mom's normal doctor was out for some reason. So she had this other doctor who didn't know her, didn't say a word. After Kathleen was born, left the room. The next day came in and said, "You're dismissed. You can go home." Never congratulated her, never gave her any kind of attention whatsoever. And
Mm-hmm.
the families that I worked with, they all dealt with that in some way, shape, or form. The family who knew that their daughter was going to be born with Down syndrome, they found that out while the mom was pregnant, and they were asked every visit for 5 or 6 visits, "Are you sure you want to carry this baby to term? You know you can end the pregnancy."
Mm-hmm.
And every
Mm-hmm.
time the parents said, "We want the baby. We want to continue on." So even
Mm-hmm.
in that case, before the child was born, they were defending its right to live. And so being able to understand from the parent's perspective, I've done hundreds of book studies and with thousands of teachers now of this book, and they've all said the same thing. The parent perspective is one we don't think about. And I think it's very important that we put ourselves in their shoes, especially as educators. And you mentioned my faith before, and that is absolutely center to my life.
Mm-hmm.
Because absolutely, I believe that we are created in his image and likeness, and that he has put us on this planet for a purpose. So the other stories in the book, there are other stories. I mean, there's funny stories. There when you read the book, you'll laugh, you'll cry, you'll probably get angry. I kind of hope you get angry because if you get angry, that kind of gives us motivation to change and to make changes. And that was one of the purposes for the book was for people to have a better understanding and for changes to happen. I hope that answered your question. I think I went on
Yeah,
a
no,
little
it
tangent.
does. Absolutely, it does. And you see, I'm kind of a little speechless because it's so powerful. I can imagine. I mean, you see, you're helping all these parents there. I mean, in their journey, which is a difficult journey, but then they can realize that with support, with empathy, with love, everything is possible. So it's really, and when you said that we are, again, it's an expression I use, each of us is on this planet for a mission. Definitely. We are
Mhm.
there to make this planet a better place,
Yeah.
and each of us has different abilities but everyone, so when you realize that, and again, it goes with this purpose in life, this is a driving factor. So, and you see, you mentioned this word empathy. This
Mhm.
is empathy is so important. I mean, it's like, and so for everybody listening here, what are the most important tips you would like to leave our audience with, And I know we only scratched the surface, Shirley, but, or what are the thoughts we haven't perhaps shared yet, which you would like to share with the audience?
Yeah, thank you for this. Yeah, Jesus loves you and died on the cross for you. And that makes you so powerful and so worthy to be on the planet, as I said. Remember that we are caterpillars turning into butterflies on the
Hmm.
regular. So you do know who you are in this moment. but you don't know who you're going to be 5 years, 10 years, 30 years down the road. I never expected to be doing podcasts or be on any kind of a stage when I was 9 years old. And here I am just a couple of years later doing all of those things that I mentioned, being an author, being on stages and speaking to people. I did teach, but it wasn't in the realm that I thought I was going to teach in when I first had it. And be open to differences. Differences are not bad. They're just differences.
Very powerful. See, when I look at your screen, I see teacher being written there.
Uh-huh.
It's like stands out. This is really my life, and this is what I want to
Yes.
be known with, and this is what I want to help people with.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, I've always, even as a child, I played school because I loved school so much. I'd get the little neighborhood kids together and I was the teacher and they were the students. And I've just always loved to learn and to be curious. And I think that's why the behaviors that I deal with are so interesting to me because I'm learning more and I'm investigating and I'm finding out, oh, okay, well, let's do this for you, or let's help you understand this or give you this skill.
Wow. So when people want to contact you, what's the best way, Shirley? Because I'm sure a lot of people listening here, viewing this podcast, will say, "Oh, wow, yes, I really would like to get in touch. I would like to read this book because I'm inspired." And so many, you see, so many people. I'm talking just the UK, but have special needs, and this support, to know that they are understood, they are felt, they are seen. It's already so
Yes.
important.
Yes, absolutely. So the easiest way, whether you want to talk with me, whether you want to hire me to be a consultant for your school or your business, whether you want to hire me as an advocate for your child, or whether you want to hire me as a speaker, the best way to do all of that is through my website, which is www.shellykenow.com. And my name is not as easy as most people would think. It's SHELLEYKENOW.com.
Absolutely, and actually, we'll be able to see it because it's written here on this. It's on that. So, well, Sheila, it's been absolutely a pleasure to have you with us here, and I'm sure that the our audience, took a lot. And my so thank you so much, and for everybody listening, thank you for being with us. And
Yes.
please share this podcast with anyone who could really use it. It could be parents, could be children, just to show them that everything's possible, the support is there, they can learn. Anybody wanted to reach to Shirley, please do that because as you can see, she's got this wonderful experience and this passion and love for what she's doing. So again, thank you so much, Shirley. Thank you everybody for being with us and see you at the next episode. Bye bye.
Bye bye.